I was hungry, not from hunger, from something deeper, something I couldn't name but felt every morning when I woke. Before the sun, before the city stirred, before anything else existed. 20 years. I had woken at this hour every morning for 20 years. Not because a voice commanded me, not because tradition demanded it, because something inside me, something that lived beneath my ribs, something that whispered constantly, wouldn't let me sleep. A voice, a hunger, a need that screamed louder than my own conscience. Amara, my wife. She was still asleep. 19 years we had been together, and I would not wake her. She knew. She understood the rhythm of our lives, how I left before dawn, how I returned after dusk, how the river owned the hours between. I stood. My body. It protested. 43 years they had accumulated in me. My knees creaked in the darkness. My back reminded me of that fall. 5 years ago, when a storm nearly pulled me under, the river saved me that day. It always saved me. But that morning, I didn't feel saved. I felt driven, pursued, like something was hunting me. I touched the amulet around my neck, my mother's charm. She had pressed it into my palm when I was barely old enough to hold it, a small carved stone. Nothing precious by the world's measure, but precious to her. I was a boy, maybe 10 years old, and I told her I wanted to be a merchant. I wanted to travel the Nile. I wanted to see the world beyond our small city. I wanted to be someone. She looked at me, and her eyes held something I didn't understand then. Sadness mixed with knowing, like she was seeing into a future I hadn't lived yet. "The river will protect you," she said, "but you must honor it. The river is wise. It takes what it needs. It gives what it can. It never wants more than it needs." She held my face in her hands. Not everything that glitters is worth carrying home. I remember thinking she didn't understand. I remember thinking gold was the point. Gold was the goal. Gold was the only thing that mattered. How else could a boy from Meroe become someone? How else could I escape this small life? I went to the window, facing east, toward where the sun would eventually rise. The Nile. I could barely see it in this darkness, a darker shadow against the dark sky. But I knew it was there, waiting. The river never left. The river was always there. I whispered a prayer, but not to the gods of Nubia, not to the gods of Egypt, not to any god at all. I whispered to the hunger, to the voice, to the thing inside me that wouldn't let me rest. "Today," I said, "today will be different." But I lied to myself. I had said this prayer every morning for 20 years, and it was never different. The sun rose. I went to the river. I pursued. I wanted. I hungered. The marketplace was already alive when I arrived, even before the sun broke the horizon, even in this darkness that wasn't quite darkness. The traders were moving like spirits, like ghosts of themselves. I knew them all. Greek merchants who had traveled the same route for 7 years. Persian traders with their distinctive fabrics and their sharp eyes that missed nothing. Egyptian merchants with connections to the capital. But I didn't want to trade with them that morning. That morning, I had something different planned. I had a shipment of fine linen, beautiful linen, dyed with expensive colors, scented with rare fragrances from lands to the south. It was quality work. It was honest merchandise. But it had a flaw, a small imperfection, not obvious, not something most people would notice. But it was there, if you knew to look for it, if your eye was trained, if your conscience still worked. That morning, a very wealthy client came to see me, a man from the capital, a man with enough gold to buy my entire inventory 3 times over. His servants carried ornate boxes. His guards stood at attention. His presence, it commanded space. He looked at the linen. He held it up to the growing light. And for a moment, I saw his eyes waver. "This is beautiful," he said. "Exquisite, actually, but I sense something. Is it perfect?" In that moment, everything stopped. I could have lied. I could have said it was perfect. I could have taken his gold. I could have, finally, filled the hunger. He was waiting for my answer. His hand was already reaching for his coin purse. I could see it. I could imagine it. A fortune, enough to travel beyond the Nile, enough to own land, enough to become someone. But my mother's words came back to me. Not everything that glitters is worth carrying home. There is a flaw, I heard myself say. My voice, it sounded like it came from someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. Someone brave. Or foolish, I wasn't sure which. Small, most people won't see it, but I see it. And I cannot sell you something I know is not complete. The man's face, it changed. First surprise, then disappointment, then something else, something like respect. He put the linen down slowly, very slowly, as if it had suddenly become heavy. "You are an honest man," he said. "That is rare." He turned to leave. His servants followed. His guards followed. His gold remained his. I stood there, and I felt something shift inside me. The hunger didn't disappear, but for the first time in 20 years, it felt smaller, quieter, more distant, and in its place, something else began to grow, something that felt like peace. That evening, I returned home as the sun was dying. The sky was turning gold, turning purple, turning black. The Nile was a mirror of fire, and I walked along the riverbank, feeling like a ghost. Amara was waiting at the window. She always was. 19 years, and she was always waiting. I entered the home. The lamplight was warm. The room smelled of bread and herbs. Everything was as it had always been, and yet everything had changed. "You refused the sale," she said. Not a question, a statement. She always knew. Yes? Why? I sat down slowly. My body was exhausted, not from the day's work, from the choice itself. Because I couldn't. She came and sat beside me. Her hand found mine. "The hunger is quieter now," I said. "Yes," she said. "I can see it in your face." We sat in silence, not an empty silence, a silence full of understanding. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because the hunger kept me awake, because something else was happening inside me. A reckoning, a transformation that had started but wasn't complete. I lay beside Amara and I thought about all the things I had said yes to, all the compromises, all the small betrayals of myself that had added up to a life lived half awake. 20 years of waking before dawn. 20 years of chasing. 20 years of wanting more. And it had never been enough. The next morning, I went to the marketplace again. The wealthy client was gone. Someone told me he had left for Alexandria. I would never know if he respected my honesty or if he simply found another merchant more flexible. But that morning, something unexpected happened. 3 other clients came to me, not wealthy, not important, simple traders who had heard what I did, what I had refused. "We want to do business with you," one of them said, "because we know you won't cheat us." And then another, and then another. Word spread. In a city of merchants and markets and constant transactions, word spread about the man who turned down fortune to keep his word. Within weeks, my business changed. Not because I became richer, because I became trusted. The wealthy clients stopped coming. I didn't become famous, but I became known. Known for what I was, not what I pretended to be. But the hunger didn't disappear completely. It transformed. Instead of hunger for gold, I felt hunger for integrity. Instead of wanting more possessions, I wanted more peace. Instead of dreaming of escape, I was content to be present. One afternoon, I was working with a young apprentice, a boy, maybe 14, quick fingers, good instincts, but restless eyes. He looked at me while we sorted linen. "Don't you ever want more?" he asked. I saw myself in him, 23 years old, hungry, driven, desperate to escape his small life. "I did," I said, "for a very long time. And now?" I looked at my hands, weathered, scarred, honest. "Now, I understand the difference between wanting more and wanting better." He didn't understand. I could see it in his face. He was too young, too hungry, too certain that gold was the answer. But someday, maybe he would understand too. As the weeks passed into months, I noticed something strange. The weight I had carried for so long, it was lifting. Not because my life became easier, it didn't. There were still struggles, still challenges, still moments of doubt. But the internal conflict, it was gone. I had chosen. And that choice, it had freed something inside me. The amulet around my neck, my mother's stone, it didn't glow or shine or transform into gold. It remained what it had always been, a small carved stone, a simple charm, but every time I touched it, I felt her presence, her wisdom, her warning that had taken me 20 years to understand. Not everything that glitters is worth carrying home. I began to understand what she meant. Some things, the things worth keeping, they don't glitter at all. They're quiet. They're steady. They're built on small choices made every single day. They're built on moments when you say no, so that you can say yes to what matters. Years passed. I don't know exactly when the shift happened. There was no single moment, no thunder, no lightning, just a slow, quiet transformation that happened in the spaces between breaths. The marketplace, it became my teacher. Every transaction, every conversation, every choice to be honest or to bend the truth, it became a lesson in who I was, or who I was becoming. I watched other merchants, men I had known for decades. Some of them grew wealthy beyond measure. They had estates, they had servants, they had the respect of the powerful and the fear of the poor. But their eyes told a different story. There was a merchant named Ptolemy, Greek, shrewd. He had made a fortune by doing exactly what I had refused to do, by selling flawed goods to the unwary, by cutting corners, by telling small lies that became big deceptions. I saw him one afternoon in the marketplace. He was older now. His hair had turned gray. His face had lines that looked like scars. He approached me. "Kamu," he said, "I hear you've become prosperous." "Yes," I said, "in my own way." "Not like me," he said. It wasn't arrogance, it was sadness. "No," I agreed, "not like you." He looked at me for a long moment. "I made more money than you could imagine," he said. "I bought land. I built a villa. I have 100 servants." "Yes," I said, "I know. But I am tired," he said. The word hung in the air between us like a confession. "Every night I wonder if someone will discover a deception. Every day I wonder if someone is stealing from me. I have so much, and I trust no one, not even myself." I didn't know what to say. "You refused one sale," he continued. "One sale cost you a fortune, but it gave you something I can never have." "What?" I asked. "Peace," he said. "You have peace." He walked away. I never saw him again. But I thought about that conversation for years, because he was right. I had chosen peace over gold, and it was the best transaction I ever made. But the real moment of truth, it came later, much later. It came when my mother was dying. She was old, so old that time had become a mercy rather than a curse. Her hair was white. Her hands were like bird bones. Her breath came in shallow, careful movements. I sat beside her bed. Amara was in the other room. My apprentices had become merchants themselves. My children were grown. My life had become full in ways I had never imagined. She opened her eyes. She looked at me, and in that moment, I saw her clearly, not as she was in that moment, but as she had always been, a woman who understood something about life that most of us spend decades learning. "The stone," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. I touched the amulet around my neck, the stone she had given me 50 years ago. "Yes," I said, "I still have it." "Did you understand?" she asked. I thought about that day in the marketplace. I thought about that one word, No, that one refusal that had changed everything. Yes, I said, I understood. Not everything that glitters is worth carrying home. She smiled, and in that smile, I saw her entire life, all her struggles, all her choices, all her refusals to compromise. You became who I hoped you would become, she said. And then she closed her eyes, and a few hours later, she was gone. I wept, not because she died, because I finally understood the full weight of her gift. She had given me not just a charm, she had given me a question I would spend the rest of my life answering. What is worth keeping? What is worth carrying home? What is gold and what is truly precious? After she died, I made a decision. I went to the marketplace one final time as an active merchant. I had trained apprentices. I had built something. And now it was time to step back. I gathered all the young merchants, the ones I had taught, the ones who had learned from watching me work with integrity, the ones who understood that reputation was worth more than any single sale. I am stepping back, I told them. The marketplace will be yours now. But I ask you one thing. What? They asked. Remember this, I said, that what you build with honesty will stand, that what you build with deception will crumble, that the only wealth worth keeping is the one people trust you with. One of them, the young apprentice from years ago, the restless boy with hungry eyes, he spoke up. I understand now, he said. I didn't when I was young, but I understand now. I nodded, because that's the thing about wisdom. It can't be given. It can only be learned through years, through choices, through the accumulated weight of deciding again and again who you are going to be. That one word, no, it had changed everything. Not because it made me rich, but because it made me honest. And in that honesty, I found something far more valuable than gold. I found myself. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I regret refusing that sale, if I regret turning away the wealth, if I regret the life I might have lived. The answer is complicated. I lost things, real things, tangible things. I never built the villa. I never owned vast estates. I never had servants waiting on my every desire. I never traveled to Rome or Alexandria or any of the great centers of the world. I never became famous. I never had my name remembered in the great houses. The life I might have lived, it was grander, more impressive, more visible. I watched Ptolemy build his villa. I watched other merchants accumulate their fortunes. I watched them gain the respect of the powerful. I watched them become important. And, yes, sometimes I wondered, what if I had said yes? What if I had taken the gold? What if I had built an empire? But then I would remember the look in Ptolemy's eyes, the exhaustion, the isolation, the way he had to guard everything he had, because deep down, he knew it wasn't earned. It was stolen. And that knowledge, it was a poison he drank every day. So what did I lose? I lost the false security of wealth without conscience. I lost the admiration of people who respect only power. I lost the life of constant acquisition and endless wanting. And what did I gain? I gained something that took me decades to fully understand. I gained trust, the trust of Amara. 19 years we were together, and she never once doubted my word. She knew that when I said something, I meant it, that when I made a promise, I would keep it, that when I came home, it was because I chose to, not because I had to. I gained the trust of my apprentices. They learned from watching me work, not because I lectured them about morality, but because I showed them day after day that it was possible to be successful and honest, that those two things, they weren't opposites. I gained the trust of my clients. People came to me not just to buy goods. They came to me because they knew they could trust me, that I wouldn't cheat them, that the goods would be what I said they were, that the price was fair, that the transaction was clean. And in that trust, I found something worth more than gold. I found influence. Not the influence of wealth or power, but the influence of character. When I spoke, people listened, not because I was important, but because they knew I meant what I said. When I made a recommendation, people followed it, not because they had to, but because they knew I wouldn't steer them wrong. When I taught my apprentices, they learned not just the business of trade. They learned how to be human, how to make choices that honored themselves, how to build a life of integrity. That's a kind of wealth that doesn't appear on any accounting ledger, but it's real, and it's lasting. I had a granddaughter, beautiful child, sharp mind, curious about everything. One day, when she was maybe 10 years old, she asked me to teach her about business. Why? I asked. Because I want to be like you, she said, but better. I want to take what you built and build something greater. And I realized something in that moment. I had lost the chance to build an empire that I would leave behind. But I had gained something better. I had built a legacy of character, and that was something my children and my children's children could inherit and build upon. Ptolemy had his villa. He had his wealth. He had his power. But when he died, what did he leave behind? Fear, distrust, a reputation for deception that followed him even into death. I had my small home. I had my modest business. I had my reputation for integrity. And when I died, what would I leave behind? People who knew my name not because I was great, but because I was honest. There's a saying in our marketplace, Camus' word is gold. It's not about wealth, it's about trust. And in a world of merchants and transactions and endless opportunities for deception, trust is the rarest currency. I think about that day in the marketplace sometimes, that moment when I said no, that moment when I could have chosen differently. I don't regret it, not because my life turned out perfectly. It didn't. There were struggles, there were losses, there were moments of doubt and fear, but I regret nothing about the choice itself, because what I gained was myself, and that is the only wealth that ever truly matters. In the end, you can take everything from a person, their possessions, their status, their power, but you can't take their integrity. That's the one thing that belongs entirely to them. Ptolemy lost everything eventually. His villa was seized, his wealth disappeared, his power evaporated, and he was left with nothing. But I have kept what matters most. A life lived honestly, a reputation earned through years of choosing integrity over convenience, a legacy that will outlast me. That one word, no, it cost me a fortune, but it gave me a life worth living, and looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. I am old now, very old, the kind of old where time feels like water. It flows around you, through you, and you're not sure where you end and it begins. My hands shake, my back is curved, my eyes don't see as clearly as they once did, but my mind is still sharp, still turning, still understanding things that took me a lifetime to learn. I sit by the Nile sometimes, the same river that carried my boats, the same river that saved my life, the same river that witnessed everything. And I think about my mother. She's been dead for 40 years now, and yet I hear her voice clearer now than I did when she was alive. Not everything that glitters is worth carrying home. I understand now what she was really saying. She wasn't warning me against greed, not exactly. She was warning me against the seduction of false values, against the trap of confusing what the world calls success with what actually matters, because the world will tell you that glitter is beautiful, that gold is precious, that power is worth pursuing, that accumulation is achievement. And it's not entirely wrong. Gold is useful. Power can create change. Accumulation can provide security. But it's not everything. It's not even close to everything. The things that glitter, they're visible. They catch light. They command attention. Everybody sees them. But the things that matter, the things that are truly precious, they're quiet. They're invisible. They don't announce themselves. A kind word, a kept promise, a moment of presence with someone you love. The integrity to refuse what you want because it's wrong. The courage to choose yourself, even when it costs you. These things don't glitter, they don't shine, they don't impress the crowds, but they endure. I look at my children, and their children, and their children's children, and I see something being passed down. Not gold, that gets spent. Not estates, those get lost. Not titles, those fade away. But character, integrity, a way of being in the world that values honesty over convenience. That gets inherited. That gets amplified. That gets better with each generation. My great-grandson came to me last week. He's a merchant now, sharp, clever, honest. He told me about a transaction where he had the chance to make a tremendous profit, but it would have required a small deception, a small betrayal of a client's trust. He said no, and I saw in his eyes he understood, not because I had lectured him, but because he had inherited something, a way of being, a way of choosing, a legacy of integrity that had been passed down through the choices of one old man more than 50 years ago. That's when I truly understood what my mother had given me. She didn't just give me a warning, she gave me a question. And that question, it shaped everything. What is worth keeping? What is worth carrying home? I carried home integrity. I carried home trust. I carried home the knowledge that my word meant something, that my life meant something, that my choices mattered, not just to me, but to everyone who watched me, everyone I taught, everyone I influenced. That's a different kind of wealth. It doesn't appear on any ledger. You can't measure it. You can't spend it. You can't hoard it. But it grows. It multiplies. It spreads through generations like a river spreading through dry land. I think about Ptolemy sometimes, too. I heard that he died a long time ago, alone, forgotten. His wealth had vanished. His reputation was a whisper of shame. Nobody speaks his name now. Nobody remembers him as great. His life, it left no mark. But my name is still spoken in the marketplace, not as someone who became rich, but as someone who became honest, as someone who showed that integrity was possible, that it was worth the cost. That's a kind of immortality, not in history books, but in the hearts of people, in their choices, in their children's choices, in the legacy of character that continues on. My mother, she understood something that most people never do, that what you build with integrity will last, that what you build with deception will crumble. She knew this, and she tried to teach it to me. And I spent half my life learning what she had tried to tell me when I was only 10 years old. Not everything that glitters is worth carrying home. I sit by the river now, and the words don't feel like a warning anymore. They feel like a gift, because I finally understand that the most precious things, they never glitter. They're quiet. They're steady. They're built on small choices made every single day. They're built on moments when you say no, so that you can say yes to what matters. I'm old now. Soon I'll be gone. My body will return to the earth. My possessions will be distributed. My business will be taken over by others. But what I've built with integrity, that will remain. Not as a monument, not as a legacy in stone, but as something far more lasting, as a way of being, a way of choosing, a proof that it's possible to live with honor, that it's possible to be successful without betraying yourself, that it's possible to be remembered not for what you accumulated, but for who you became. My mother gave me a stone, a small carved amulet. That stone is still with me after 50 years. It never changed. It never aged. It never became more valuable or less valuable. It just remained what it always was, a simple stone, a simple reminder. But it was the most valuable thing she ever gave me, because it taught me to ask the right questions, because it shaped every choice I made, because it led me to a life that, while not the grandest, was the most honest. And looking back, from where I sit now, by the river that has carried everything away and yet remains, I finally know that one word, no, that one refusal in the marketplace. It was the moment I became free. Not from gold, not from ambition, not from the world, but free from myself, from the hunger that had driven me for so long, from the endless reaching for something that would never satisfy. I became free to simply be. And that is the only wealth that ever truly mattered.